Change the Show by Miles Kane. 11 songs, 36 minutes long. His first record since 2018's Coup de Grace, which we did talk about on this podcast as well. Miles Kane, known for his solo work, also for his duo band with noted also Brit of Crispy Tunes, Alex Turner of The Last Shadow Puppets, which is one of my favorite collaborative bands ever made. They are so good with those two records, and they will be making another one at some point, but they both are releasing records this year. As Arctic Monkeys will release a record this year, and also Miles Kane's this year. So one day we'll get another Last Shadow Puppets album. When? I don't know, but I will be there when that happens. Anyways, going on, I remember reviewed Coup de Grace 18. I thought it was okay, but I thought it was a little bland for Miles Kane, especially because he has a pretty decent range within his musicality and has a ton of influences. And you hear that in this record, and he has such a big step forward in this record. I really, really enjoyed it. We talked about Don't Let It Get You Down as a single. Now in the context of the record, fucking love it, because it's like it's a mix between like 60s rock inspired, 70s rock inspired, Motown horns, and all these other things kind of jumped into a record of him basically moving from LA back to England a few years ago, and kind of like going back home in that way, and going back to, not having all the stresses and having joy in his life again, which he really didn't have that much, because, LA can suck the life out of some folks, which I understand. And
LA.
Tacos are better in LA. And it's a really good, it's quite a good album. His voice just is incredible, as always, but just with the musicality of this one, it's really nice to hear a very upbeat rock record, because a lot of the rock records we've been getting have been more toned down, a lot of really like kind of depressing, different genres, different subject matters and stuff, which, literally we are called Audioface or playing Radiohead. Depression is my fucking life, so I love it. And give me some more Stanley Donwood drawings of like the war in Yugoslavia and shit in '94. Like, inject that into my veins. But it's nice to have a record that is on the nose, especially within rock. And Change the Show is that. But getting to the musicality of it, the first two tracks, Tears Are Falling. Like, actually, Tears Are Falling is an interesting choice for a track to open with. And like, if I ever interviewed Miles Kane, I would ask him, why did you start with Tears Are Falling as your to open the record on? Because it's a little bit of a slower song to get you in. And that's honestly the only misstep in this record for me, is that placement of the opening track. It's a fantastic track. Don't get me wrong. I really like it. It's a really nice kind of piano ballad with really undersoated guitar and drums, and his voice, a really crispy sound. Like, it's good, like really 60s throwback vibes. But in the context of a record, like the beginning track, it just like, that's interesting. That's an interesting start for the record. And then the second track, Don't Let It Get You Down, just boom, it gets you into it. You have some really fun drum beats. You have a really nice brass ensemble in the background. Like, it's a fantastic rock song. Honestly, one of the favorite rock songs we've done in this podcast for a long time. Like, I've listened to this track a lot, not just because I'm a Miles Kane fan, but just because it's genuinely good.
Yeah, it's an undeniably catchy track, and that's
Exactly
what a lot of the songs on here are. I think, yeah, you get past what some may see as like, oh, this is almost like too optimistic, like, the sun, close the blinds, damn it. But no, like, what you might lose for that if you're looking at this album is, it's too poppy sounding, it's too like optimistic sounding, what I think could be like criticisms of it. You're missing all the musical influences, all the like old school things that are being thrown in there at once to kind of create this thing that, why does this sound kind of poppy and like overly optimistic and like played before? Because this was so much of music for an era of time. And so in that callback kind of context, it very simple structures that like end in like music that end very nicely, like dun 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 dun, like having nice finality to them. You get a lot of those through here. But definitely because transparently, this was the album of the selection this week that I listened to the least, but still gotten like a good amount of listens to it. Going back, I did feel like Tears Are Falling should have been the second to last song on the album.
Yes,
I think the last song, not to jump ahead too much, does a good balance of being upbeat. Being upbeat, but still ending the album really nicely and being really memorable. Like, I really expected more to come after that song. I was almost a little bit upset, but like, that's a great ender. I would have put Tears Are Falling just before that, because I like the intro to it for the album of the song, but everything else just paces it too slow for what you were saying, Sean, is a really upbeat project.
Exactly. And like example, if you put don't let it get you down and nothing's ever going to be enough, which is also a fantastic track that Miles Kane, I think, is at his best when he has someone to go off of. When he has that duet going, it is incredible. He has Corinne Bailey Rae on that track, and they're kind of going back and forth is really, really nice. I love it. I love their both their voices is unique in that way where Miles can really adapt to whoever he's with, whoever he's featuring on for a record, whoever is featuring on his own records. He can really adapt and change and make it to where his art form is still there on the track. He's not going to put too much of his own flair on it, but it will always adapt to whatever project it is, and that's something that I like. But if you put Tears Are Falling Down and you had to Let It Get You Down, Nothing Is Ever Going to Be Enough as your 1 and 2, that's like a perfect album opener. But that's just us being really nitpicky music critics or so. But anyways, really like Nothing Is Going to Be Good Enough. You have kind of the middle of the record with See You When I See You, Never Get Tired of Dancing, which is also another fantastic track. You get these really cool Motown infused beats with older rock and then trying to modernize it all into it. So it's very unique in that way. And I also compared to Coupe de Gras, because I think Coupe de Gras was very stale in the way it sounded. I was a bit disappointed in that. This is the way of like, oh wow, I can see some ideas he had even in Everything You Come to Expect, the last Shadow Puppets record in 2016. Some of those tracks like Aviation and a few others where I can hear some of those ideas, but they weren't really fashioned out in a way. Also because it's a band, so it's totally different. I can get some of those sounds onto here now with Nothing Is Ever Is Going to Be Good Enough, Never Get Tired of Dancing, Coming of Age, Change the Show, so on. Those tracks I can see, oh wow, that took a long time for him to make. But in the context of that, I like that where you let those things marinate, I'm going to let that marinate for you. It took 6 years on some of that sound, but I can hear those influences. And now in the context of his solo work, I go, oh, wow, they're really so. But album ends fantastic constantly. Caroline's a good track. And Adios, Ta Ra Ta Ra is a really good ending track.
Loved it.
Absolutely fucking love it. And I'm the same way with you, Dan. When it finished, because I put the album, I want to be surprised because when it's an artist I really like, I'll listen to 1 or 2 singles depending on what it is, and then I'll let it play through. I was so mad when it ended.
Yeah.
And then it stopped, and then it went to another Miles. Oh no, it went to Last Shadow Puppet song. I was like, fuck, that's the album? Oh my God, that went by fast. I played it like another 2 times. I was like, this is incredible.
Yeah, I do appreciate the brevity. This is drop territory, but this is cohesive enough to be an album because unlike
line.
Yeah. This is so hard to compare this to Youngboy NBA because they're just so vastly different as projects. But the only thing I'll say is that this is what we mean with intentionality for an album. He was going for a sound. He was going for a thing he wanted to accomplish. He gave himself a period of time. He found some artists to work with and then made it happen, got those influences together, and there was intentionality to the project, and therefore you got execution, and therefore you got something that like is out of my realm generally, but something I really enjoyed. So like, you can really do this with music.
And again, as so many people are saying rock is dead. There are so many different forms of it that you can get. And you can even get some of these throwback tunes and crispy tunes, as we like to say, onto here and have at it. It's so much fun. Miles, if you're listening to this, I want you on. I want to just dissect this goddamn album.
Yeah, I definitely want to hear about that question. So, arbitrary scale we have in this week. Every week we have arbitrary scales in Audioface because rating systems are pointless. This week we have the green, yellow, red card system from elementary school, based on behavioral statuses. Who wants to figure out? If you want to guess what cards that Sean and I had most of the time in elementary school, comment below, and we'll let you know if you're right or not. But I'm gonna give this a green card.
The answer may surprise you,
or will it?
Yeah, 100% green card. Absolute green card. Like, you are allowed by the U.S. government to stay in this country. Like, 100% green card. Fantastic.
Yes, solid album.
Great, solid record. Love it.